Hi Wolfie, I will start with my CGI part and later the timestamp is in the description. You will see my real footage where I tried to mount an action cam on a globe model. Um, but I think it's really nice to see it in a geometrical representation of our globe Earth and our solar system, and it's much easier, much better to see that it really works very well on the globe model at the equinox. So I have here modeled this. This ball is actually with a grid sphere on it, and I can just change it to typical Earth we all know. But for better understanding, I think this grid is much better, so I keep it in a dimmed mode so we all can see where our telescope is standing on. Whoops, I'll try it. And what we're doing here. So I have created this telescope. It's capable of rotation around this axis here, which is also marked with some numbers just to see a little bit better. I have also a little pin here, standing about 90 degrees, and this is also capable of moving in this direction. And in this case, this yellow axis is perpendicular, not perpendicular, parallel to the rotation axis of the Earth. Just as an equatorial mount should be adjusted. And I will show you just to see that is we have this solar disk, which makes me this plane that goes through the sun, just to represent a little bit this the whole area, the whole surface of this rotation plane. And you see I get problems with the graphical representation because Blender is not made to create models in the scale of some astrological elements. Just to show here that the Earth is tilted 23 degrees. I can show this value here. This is the tilt of the Earth. And I just make the solar disk away. And now we have the possibility to look through this telescope with this camera. This camera is exactly mounted in this telescope, so we could see where it looks to. And I do this by pushing the numpad 0 on the keyboard. Now we are looking through the telescope. If I move the camera slightly away, you can see it's not easy. Everything's very tight and tiny. Come on, work with me, Blender. So you see we're inside this telescope, and I have this crosshair-like geometry just to visualize the center of the sun a little bit better. So go back into this, into this camera, and we see the sun is nicely in the middle of the crosshair. And if I go outside there, come on, Blender, don't kill me. And I can rotate the Earth by a timeline. Let's see if I rotate this timeline, the Earth is spinning. And you can also see that the telescope automatically tracks the sun just in this one axis. The other axis isn't moving anywhere. It's tangential to the surface on this, in this case, because it's mounted at the equator. If I hit play, The Earth will continuously rotating. Like you see here. And I also have another camera, this one here. This is just a camera to track the telescope, to look from the outside to the telescope. And this is rotating with the Earth. So you can see while the Earth is rotating, just a single axis is rotating for tracking the Sun. And I have even a little bit closer camera, which is just looking at the scale bar here. There you also can see it's just rotated around this one axis. And this is done by a locked track constraint of this object here. And a locked track constraint gives the program the possibility to turn an object around one locked axis, which is the x-axis here, and to point the minus y-axis to another object, which is in this case the Sun. So I don't have to bother about the rotation of this green thing. The other axis is adjustable, so I could move this telescope around. But first, let us look inside this telescope, inside the camera here. And try and look what's happening. And we see here nicely that the Sun is stable in the center of the screen. And if I remove this green outer of the telescope, you can just blend it out. The camera is still there. Camera is still available, but the green shell is now gone and we can look through this thing. So again, I look inside and I play. And we can see how the Sun is rising exactly south. Exactly south here, clear. Exactly, it's setting in the west and it's rising in the east. And this line is the equator line. Which is a little bit thicker than the other of the grid. And here this works everywhere on the globe, and it's easy to show here. This model is a little bit pimped with so-called illumination nodes. Will give you the possibility of do some mathematical calculations, and they're very useful for. Where's the thing gone? There it is. They're very useful for positioning objects, and I use them to position this telescope on the Earth. I go into the node editor. And you can see it's not that complicated. I just get the position of the Earth and the rotation, and I use it to turn this telescope, this body of the telescope with it. It's the telescope body, telescope stand. It's this object here. The object is actually marked. And all I can do is I can put it a little bit higher or lower on the ground, but it will still rotate with the Earth. What I also can do is change the longitude and latitude of this telescope. And we can put it everywhere we want. So I go a little bit up where we want to go. I'm from Germany, so I'll put it somewhere in Germany here. '57. We're somewhere here around in Germany. Maybe not that perfect. Could rotate a texture of this thing a little bit more, but it makes no difference. And you see that the axis here is still pointed parallel to the rotation axis of the Earth. And this is simply done by inverting this value. So I subtract it from 0 and put it inside the rotation axis of this yellow part. See here, if I rotate it manually, I can rotate it everywhere I want, and I blend this other green thing again in. And in this case, now I'm 49 degrees north, so I would put here 49 degrees, but I can simply do this by inverting this value and put it inside here. Now I have guaranteed that I'm parallel to this axis. In this case, we're a little bit low, so that's the case why I use this value here to put the telescope a little bit up. And again, we can show through this thing. And here I'm looking in the stand of the telescope, so I will blend the stand out. And again, the sun is perfectly rising. Another feature that the flat earth can explain why the sun is rising behind the horizon. It's rising and stays stable inside the crosshair. I play. It perfectly rises, stays there, and sets again. So you see, this model is perfectly capable of reproducing every feature of an equatorial mount. Again, I can. So there's another camera. Again, watch through this camera by Command and 0. And then again, and you see the Earth is spinning. And the telescope is just turning around one axis. The other axis stays perfectly stable. Okay, now we see it's no problem to reproduce this out of this kind of mount, equatorial mount, in a 3D model. I don't need any tricks. I'm just model it right from scratch. It wasn't that hard. All what I've done is I angle this little geometry here in the right direction. I give a turning point in this point, and I said that this telescope, this green part with a crosshair in it, point to the sun and only is allowed to rotate around this axis. And as we see, it's perfectly capable of tracking the sun. Can blend it out so you can see it again. That's the yellow part. Oh, this jittering effect comes to the fact that Blender is a little bit at the limits of its capabilities, because this model is quite big. Blender doesn't like such big units. Okay, now we see it's working perfectly on the globe Earth, and now we could look what's happening on the flat Earth. So change to another layer where I model the flat Earth. Right now you see nothing because it's somewhere here. So now we have the same thing here. I have this telescope standing here, and if I go to the high noon, so the telescope is pointing exactly upward. To do this, to aim at the sun with this telescope on a flat Earth, I need to put the second axis parallel to the surface. I'm also somewhere at the equator, So it's nearly the same as on the globe Earth for this part. But when we look through this telescope on a flat Earth, and now we go and try to turn this thing. Okay, well, maybe I should show you what. If I hit play on this one, the sun is rotating around. It's rotating around this axis. And have the same constraint on this. The program tries to track the sun, but just using one axis, the x-axis, like the other telescope and the other one. And it tries its best to track to it. But I think you can always see it that it has no chance to track the Earth, to track the sun. And if I go inside there, you see it makes a little bit weird movement. The sun comes up and says hello, and it goes again. It just peaks a little moment. So maybe we could better the situation by moving this to another degree. So we could use a little bit from this direction. Have we done it better? It goes up, it goes too high, it goes down. We have nearly no chance. Even could clear the screen hill. You see that the sun is going up and down, and the program has no chance to track the sun in the middle of this camera just by rotating it around one axis. So we need a second rotation axis. And I've done the same thing. I'm done with the green part, done here with the yellow one. I give them also this tracking location. This time it tracks around. The program has the possibility to turn this object around these axes here, between the blue and the yellow part. And we go inside the camera again. And if I activate this constraint, we see the sun is in the middle of this crosshair. But if we go out and look what the telescope is doing, we see two-axis simultaneous motion that is necessary to track the sun on a flat Earth. And to show you that it's the same time that I use, we go up and go on the top on this surface, and you see here the sun, and we can count this grid here behind. We see the disk is about 2 of these big grids. I don't know exactly. Yeah, now you can see this. The disk is about 4 grids. And if I do the flat Earth away, you see the sun is at 1 grid. So it has a diameter. The path of the sun has a diameter of 2 grids, so it's half the size of the Earth. So it's the same situation. We are on the equinox on the flat Earth, but the problem is nothing works on the flat Earth. Either way, I track the sun and use 2 axes that simultaneously move. And if I don't use 2 axes, I have the problem that the system isn't capable of tracking the sun even close. It just goes through the middle of this crosshair. Just another big flaw of the flat Earth is that they can't explain why the sun is rising or setting anyway. But this is another nail in the coffin of the flat Earth, I think. So now I bothered you enough with my CGI animations and all you can cry, no, it's just a fake, it's just a fake. But I will open this file for everyone, load it to my Google Drive account and paste the link in the description. So everyone who wants can download Blender. It's completely free software. Open this model and try this for itself. And you can test this model, you can look if I have something fishy inside or something else, but I don't think you will find something because I didn't do anything special or anything magic in this model. It's just a model like it's claimed by the flat earthers or like it's claimed by the globe earthers. Where's the globe? There's the globe. This is the claim the globe earthers, or everyone on this planet does, who has something to do with science. And the flat earth model is model like the flat earthers claim them. And again, here you see how simply it rotates. And if I get this camera inside here and change to this one with Control or STRG in Germany and the 0 numpad, it jumps in the selected camera and you can see how perfectly it tracks. You can always select them here in the side and the tree where you see all the objects that are visible in this layer. It's not that much, just a telescope, the sun. This lamp isn't really necessary. It's one of the default objects in Blender. I didn't delete it. Click the watch telescope, put my mouse cursor on the 3D space. See this. Watch the telescope too. You can watch it from the outside. You can blend in these objects like you wanted to. You can put the camera away and you see how simply this Earth is just rotating. Even on the solar disk, you see it's rotating. I'll put it back on the 0. You see here's the line for 180 degrees. I didn't try this, but I think there must be the 0 degree line on the other side. Yep, there's the 0 degrees. To actually show the lightning of this object, I have to do a little change because I want the sun to look nice and yellow and a little bit fiery. But you have to remember, if you see the sun like this, like a heart, with a hard corner, and you see really some details on the sun, you need a solar filter. And I have done this by reducing the lightning force of the sun dramatically. So I can go to the material of this one, and you see this is an emission shader. The emission shader emits light that's really capable of lighting the scene, but the emission strength of 2 is just too less to illuminate the earth. And with Shift and C button, you can change to the real rendered view where light is calculated correctly, and you see the earth is completely dark. But when I push up the emission to 5000 or so, you see the sun is completely white, it's burned out. And you can see the Earth is illuminated. And now it's illuminated with this yellow color, and if I put this away, it looks a little bit nicer. So it's just white illuminated, and you see half of the globe is illuminated. The shadow runs perfectly through the poles at the top and on the bottom. And if we rotate this, we see that if we use these points here, maybe I use the 80-degree line. It's not that easy because you have this jittering. A moment, maybe I could better this effect with start resolution too. Maybe now it works a little bit better. No, not that much. But you see how all the longitude lines coming out of the shadows simultaneously, and they also go around, disappear simultaneously. In the shadow. So no matter where we're on the same longitude, you have the same moment where the sun disappears behind the horizon. Okay, now really enough with my CGI stuff. How I said, I put a link for the model in the description, and everybody can prove it for itself. You can test the model and can look if I do something magic or something else in this, but I promise you won't find it. It's not necessary to fake something on the globe Earth. It's just a point when you make things work that doesn't really work, and that's the flat Earth model. See, for the flat Earth model, we need a second axis of rotation for this telescope to tracking the sun. One axis, no chance. We need a second axis. But in reality, we don't. We don't need this kind of movement in reality to track the sun at equinox. Okay, now to my real footage, and please don't laugh about it. I just have to record it with a webcam on my computer, and I have just two arms. I put the camera in my mouth to hold it and stumbled across things, and oh god. Okay, this is a try to show how an equatorial mount works on a globe model. Can you see the axis down here? And it's going up to there. That's the rotation point of the globe. And my camera is mounted with duct tape and a ball mount to somewhere in America, the epicentrum of the flat Earth movement, I think. And the axis of this ball mount is mounted not perpendicular, parallel to the rotation axis of this globe model. And this camera here is set to live view, so we can see the view of the camera on my smartphone. But I have the problem that I have only two hands, so I need to put the webcam in my mouth, and you will see that the picture on the mobile phone will change when I rotate the camera. And then I will show you how I can easily keep the light source in the center of the screen just by rotating the action cam around
its mounting point. This is the only rotation that's left. The ball mount itself is tightened, so it won't move. You can see this here. It's not tightened that hard. I don't want to crush this globe model. It's not one of mine. But now let's try it. I will keep my mouth closed so the camera hopefully won't fall out, and we'll move this whole construct. Man, that's really not easy. Okay, so see, it's perfectly easy to keep the sun, or in this case the light source, in the center of the screen while rotating the globe, just by rotating the camera around the axis which is parallel to the rotation axis of the Earth.